Innovation in AI in my brain goes together like peanut butter and jam, right? You have to be able to innovate while using AI and then use AI in a way to innovate.
I am Ayanda Nenemba, your host, and today's conversation sets the spotlight on the future world of work and ethical adoption of artificial intelligence. And joining me today is Lizré Botha, an esteemed voice in higher education and marketing. So I've sort of come up with a universal definition that I've coined out of the academic definition of ethics, and that is that ethics is a universally accepted line of division between wrong and right. And of course, Lizré, what that assumes is that there's already existing an environment that can enable that moral campus to actually play itself out. What are your thoughts around that, particularly in the education space?
Big question. Big question. I think the first thing we have to really look at is that word environment, right? We assume that we want to create an ethical environment that is the same for everybody because then we have rules. It's like playing sport, there needs to be some guiding rules, right? And in higher education, we really try and do that because we want to create a mindset of ethical leaders, understanding that you will be faced with challenges, let's say, for example, like artificial intelligence. Now you're faced with this challenge, how do we use it? And I think around ethical responsibility, how do we ensure that we are still creative, that we're still trying new things, that we're still changing and adapting, but doing it in a right way. And as higher education providers, we are still largely trying to see what that looks like in AI because it's ever changing. We don't know how big it is. We're not sure how it's going to change. It's one of those ever evolving technologies that we need to take care of. So for us, when we talk about an ethical environment, we can't control our students' environment, right? We can't. We are largely a distant learning educational provider. So we need to say, when we engage with our students, what is the environment? What is the platform? Acknowledging AI and saying, students, this is how we should use it. This is how you should engage with AI. Because we don't want students to be left behind. It is here, it's here to stay. But how do we use it to make sure that you are equipped for the world of work?
Interesting that, a lot of people, there's different schools of thoughts. Some people think that AI is an unwelcome disruptor. Some people think it's a problem, but some people think it's actually a solution. And we've certainly seen in the education space how AI has become a solution. And yet the tension exists, Lizré, where as educators, as service providers within that space, you're constantly trying to figure out how do we then ensure the retention of human creativity? How exactly should we approach this problem or perhaps this opportunity within the adoption of AI?
Oh, again, another big question, and my brain is just firing. As educators, I think teachers might have dealt with the same type of conundrum when Google first came out, right? Suddenly, it's no longer you can Google anything. And I suppose that's the same way that we feel about AI. It is here, you can use it. So I think it's the same type of challenges, right? And then the second part is, again, how do we responsibly use it? It is here to stay. It's not going to go away. And then the next thing I'm thinking about, we don't have to be scared of AI. I think AI is a good disruptor. And I'm by no means an expert. I just enjoy it so much. And if you really start to unpack it, you use AI in every single thing. For example, Netflix, when it sort of gives you based on your preferences, what do you want to watch next? That is AI. And we love that, right? That's not scary. Or driving here this morning, I had to drive with my navigation, with my GPS to get here. That's also AI, showing you which way to go. So I think the first thing is just to accept it is new. Everybody feels that way, like in the beginning with Google, but it's not supposed to be scary. It is things that can help us. For me, AI is a tool that can help us become more effective, to use our time better so that we can free up things for the things that are really important for us. So that's sort of my thinking around that conversation.
Yeah. I suppose then, creating an enabling environment like we spoke earlier on, with conversations like these, conversation is an incredible tool that helps change mindsets, it changes paradigms and shifts the ability of a people or perhaps even a generation into a different mode of thinking. Again, Lizré, as educators, there is an intentional application that must be put in place. There is a product design that must be put in place in order to share knowledge, in order to educate prospective users of our educational products. What is the actual requirement of educators for educators? What do educators need in order to ensure that they produce and put together packaging and information that will be usable and helpful to prospective users of AI within this space?
Look, as an educator, you have to be brave. You have to be able to challenge yourself to try new things, because the fact is your students are already engaging and trying these things, right? So you need to do that first. I'm a firm believer that if you need to teach or impart knowledge, you first need to understand what it looks like. So go out there and try these different AI tools and then put it back into learning. Teach your students how to deal with it. So if we're talking about branding and advertising, for example, there's wonderful tools and platforms that we can use. So teaching our students how to use these platforms is one part of it. And then after you've used the platform, don't lose your individual thinking. I always tell my students, what is your voice? After you've now used this tool, what is your voice? Because your voice is still going to be unique. And I think in Milpark, that really goes back to trying to create authenticity and to make sure that there's a human-centric approach to technology. So still your creative take. So let's say, for example, in branding and advertising, we have logo design, right? You can use AI and ask, what is the best colors to create authority in your logo? That's fine. The AI might come up with, let's say, blue or red. But from there, decide why are you going to use blue? And other than authority, what are you trying to signal? So it's still using technology, using your resources, using those platforms that can give you quick answers if you think about Google. But then what is your interpretation thereof? What is your voice, your insight? And I think that's the tricky part for educators, creating an environment, like we said in the beginning, that is ethical in the sense of this is not necessarily your thinking, your work in the beginning. If they say, okay, the logo should be blue. But then it goes, okay, how do I ethically use this information to still be an individual and create my own voice to say, I've used blue because of the target market seems to, respond to blue better than red. And this is what the data says. So I think that's the balance. The balance is using technology because we can't get away with it, but encouraging that critical thinking and problem solving.
Fantastic.
That human side of it.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic because one, I think of the tensions and the uncertainties is perhaps even budget related. So as a human being, when I'm thinking of producing a particular product in the education space, I know AI is available, but the question is, what is the cost? The question is, at what cost, am I going to be able to produce this incredible product? And it takes us all the way back, Lizré. Let me take you all the way back when we first started hearing about innovation. You and I probably started, when we think about innovation, I'm sure it takes you all the way back to Silicon Valley. Yes?
Yes.
Absolutely. And Silicon Valley has painted a picture for us that we need to completely let go of the one element that feeds into education in order to adopt another element in order for us to be innovators. And that's not true. What we're saying today is that there is a balance and ethics are an important consideration in forming that incredible balance. Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it is innovation and AI in my brain goes together like peanut butter and jam, right? You have to be able to innovate while using AI and then use AI in a way to innovate. So the one cannot go without the other. If you try to separate them, you're not going to get the sweet spot, right? You're not going to get the full picture. You can't use one without the other one. And I think as educators, that innovative mindset of there's a problem, there's a gap, which we all know as South Africans, there are really real problems on the ground that we need to try and solve. And you can use AI to do that. You can use innovation to do that. So for us, it's that mindset.
Sure.
Maybe it's more of an entrepreneurial mindset, or looking at something with different eyes, a different perspective, and trying to see how can I solve it. If we can do that, then as educators, we are leaving a legacy. We are creating future leaders, future ethical leaders.
Lizré, let's. Our conversation today is looking at the ethical adoption of AI and the future world of work. Now, let's talk about the future world of work. Every time the future world of work comes up, I think there's a bit of panic that comes up because you're trying to figure out what now. We've come from the era of computers. Now we are looking at gadgets that are small, sleek, smart. What does the future work actually look like, and what skills are required?
So we need to get very comfortable
Yes.
with the fact that we don't exactly know, right? So we can predict, we can dream, we can be excited about it, but we don't actually know what it's going to look like. So the only thing that I tell my students is, let's look at now. What do we need? Because ultimately, you're going to adapt with technology, right? I don't know if there's going to be flying cars in the future. I don't know if I'm going to have a personal robot assistant that's going to help me with my laundry. I don't know.
That would be very helpful.
It would be very helpful. But what I can say is those human-centric skills of critical thinking, problem solving, being able to adapt, being able to change, being able to explore, being able to connect with people is still going to be very important. And I think if you look at kids today, they're already so comfortable with that. You can give, for example, my sister's kids, you can give them a tablet. They know how to use it. So they're going to be very comfortable with technology interfacing. It is, how do we not lose that? How do we say, go and play outside, or let's make eye contact, or let's go and spend some time together. So the future world of work, I think it is, we need to be comfortable with not knowing exactly what it's going to look like, but focus on skills that we know. It doesn't really matter in what environment you're in, that's still going to translate. And I think that critical thinking, problem solving, being innovative, looking for gaps of where can I promote my uniqueness? How is a different way of looking at this? That's never going to go away. That connecting with people is never going to go away.
And what about digital literacy? I mean, how do we approach that? I don't want to call it a problem.
No, that's a big sort of box, if you will.
It is a box.
In this room of AI, digital literacy is a big box, and it's a big unknown. And if we take it down a notch, it can just be being computer literate, understanding coding, for example. And there, like I said in the beginning, you need to be brave enough to go and try these things. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room to enroll for coding, or to read up on coding, or to read up on data literacy, how to use stats, how to use maths. And that's the nice thing about Milpark and our qualifications. We understand that people see this box of maths and accounting and they go, oh, that one is not for me. But actually, if we unpack it slowly and we speak the language of our students, they understand that it's not that a big box, and it's actually quite interesting. It's nice to sort of start opening it up and pulling away the different layers, and then it's not that scary. Anybody can become data literate, in my opinion.
And that is the voice of Lizré Botha, an incredible voice in higher education and marketing. And today we are exploring ethical adoption of AI and the future world of work. Right there, Lizré, one of the greatest concerns in this particular space and time is the fear that AI could be replacing jobs. What are your thoughts about that?
That word replace.
I know.
It really gets to me. I think because I'm a firm believer of work-life balance, right? For me, instead of thinking that you can be replaced, I like to take a positive spin on it to see how can I make myself valuable? Because a job can replace you if you're just thinking about A, B, C, right? Anybody can do an Excel spreadsheet, for example. But the value that you bring to that Excel spreadsheet, it's what's going to set you apart. And then all the soft skills that goes around with it. Are you somebody that can connect with people? Are you likable? And how do you invest in yourself so that you are valuable? So for me, that word irreplaceable, I sort of just want to throw it away and go, don't think about the skills that you will ultimately have to adapt. Think about, how can I make myself valuable? What are the things that I need to invest in myself so that I become unique in the market, unique in my job function? And then it really doesn't matter what AI does, because you as an individual, you've invested in yourself. That's my positive take on it. And that's something that I want to instill with my students as well, to say, nobody can really replace you. You're a unique individual. Knowing how to leverage your superpower is what's going to make you valuable.
That is, you know how helpful that is, because I think what it does is that it peels off the layers of fear. It peels off the layers even from a place of a lack of literacy, where there's very little literacy around digital transformation. What it does to hear that actually the important ingredient here is me upskilling myself and keeping myself relevant regardless of AI and whatever tools are available. That's really, really helpful. Talking and staying on there, one of the critics within the artificial intelligence adoption sort of conversations is how, as South Africa in particular, we are so lacking behind with transformation and that agenda. How do we, with everything taken into consideration, Lizré, how do we keep up with the global pace of adoption where AI is concerned?
Oh, again, another big question.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I'm thinking about is we will do ourselves a disservice to not really understand where our students are at. We have a lot of students that still struggle with data connectivity, that have to drive to a Wi-Fi hotspot to sort of upload assignments. And it's those students that I don't want to be left behind.
Sure.
So we really understand the challenges of students, and we try to set it up for them so that it is accessible. I think that's the first thing, is making sure that they can still access all of these beautiful tools and platforms so that they can go to the next level, right? So that's something that we are really faced with, and something that is very topical when we have conversation, because we want to push our students to become graduates, to live in this digital world, to be on the same standard so that they can go into the world of work. Our job is to take them from point A all the way through to point B. And the way that we do that is supporting, guiding. And again, here is really about taking away that perception of I'm not smart enough, or I really can't do this, or it's going to be difficult. There's this beautiful YouTube video, and now I can't remember the speaker, but the number one attribute that you need in order to be successful, it doesn't really matter where you come from, is grit. And that's that resilience of, okay, so I'm going to drive, I'm going to get to a Wi-Fi hotspot, I'm going to upload my assignment, I'm going to engage with my lecturer, I'm going to get the help that I need. And ultimately, it's this thing as Milpark, if you do you, we will make sure that you get there. And I think that's very important, to understand where our students are and to push them a little bit. Not intimidating, but you can do this. Let's get there. Just take one step at a time, and you are going to get there. Then this word digital transformation, which sounds so big and fancy.
It does sound big. It does sound very big.
You break it down to the fundamentals. And I think that's what our team does with leaving a legacy. It's for that student that really wants to get there, and we're going to take you there.
The question, and I suppose this is where we'll leave it, Lizré, is what role do scholars and professionals play in ensuring that AI adoption and maintaining the credibility of advanced education is sort of moving in the same pace. There's a parallel impact that both the adoption and ensuring the credibility of advanced education are actually put in the same footing.
Again, a big question. You are hitting me with just big questions today.
It's AI.
I suppose the responsibility is to really try and understand where it is going. And even then, when we predict and when we try, like, what's the next big thing?
Yes.
That might not be the next big thing. I know that higher education providers around the country, we do have like advisory boards and we have meetings where we sit and we unpack these issues to really understand what's happening and how do we use it. For us, it really becomes, I think you used it, an enabling environment where there is try, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, let's try something else. And I think if you are adaptable enough and if you're able to move with your students and understand, then it's going to be fine. For example, now we are trying group presentations, trying to use different platforms to allow students to go and record their presentation at any point in time so that they are not left behind. So that's one of the things we, for example, do. Or where we allow students to go and build a website on any platform because we're trying to test specific skills. It really doesn't matter what platform you as a student choose. You need to go and figure it out. You need to play around with it as long as you reach the benchmark of I created a website and this is the marking rubric that we're going to mark against. You have tools to, again, be unique, to try things. But educators have to be able to open it up. You have to be able to tell your students, use any platform. This is your standard. This is what I'm going to give you marks for. Go and explore, have fun, and come back, because we don't know which platform is the best for students to use. So we're going to try everything and then see, okay, this one is the one that most students chose. That's the one that they feel comfortable with. Let's go from there.
Sure. I'm just hearing acceptance, which is a huge human need. And as educators, I suppose then the role that educators can play is to create an enabling and an accepting environment for students. And the role that students can play is to bring themselves and not hold back.
Absolutely.
You said it in the beginning, brave. And that word keeps coming up. So I suppose then the perfect linkage between the adoption of AI and ethics is being brave.
Is being brave, and then creating an environment where we can have tough conversations.
Sure.
I think that's also part of it, because it's still, you're still learning, right? You're still developing as a student. You're still trying to cultivate your mindset. So if you, for example, have gone a little bit that way instead of the way that we wanted you to go. Let's say you've done something that you shouldn't have done, right? Which is students, which is normal. It is then about creating that environment where we say, okay, this was your assignment. This actually went wrong. Let's have a conversation. Let's resubmit, because I'm interested, and this is very important, in your development. So I understand the graduate that's going to come in. I want to get you to the end. And there's this beautiful saying as well, from the beginning of not knowing to the end of knowing is this learning journey, right? And in that learning journey, we don't know what we don't know.
No.
We don't know what we don't know.
We're eager to discover.
That's it. So be brave, go on this journey with us. And if I see you're not being ethical, or you are still creating your mindset, it is then about, do we have an environment? Do we have a rapport? Are we able then to communicate, to say, hey, let's change this, that, and the other, because I know who you can be. I'm going to get you there.
I know who you can be, and I'm going to get you there. Today's conversation has highlighted how AI is more than just a technological shift. It is a societal shift. South Africa has the potential to lead in ethical AI adoption, and through education, reskilling, and human-centered innovation, we can ensure that AI works for us and not against us. Thank you, Lizré. It's been absolutely phenomenal having you here. Join us next time as we continue exploring the future of education, leadership, and digital transformation. Now, don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with those passionate about shaping the future. Until next time, I am Ayanda signing off. Stay curious, stay creative, and keep learning.